Born in chaos, the planet nurtured life through fire and ice. Oxygen allowed life to grow and spread across the planet. Life settled into a rhythm and pattern. Then fires burned from within. Most of life was wiped out. And the dinosaurs came to rule for millions of years. Disaster from space wiped them away. And the mammals would rise and dominate the miracle planet. Today, Zhejiang province in southern China is a place of agriculture and growth. And the rocks here show evidence of the greatest mass extinction the planet has experienced. For geologists, this is a window into the past.
Hey Sam, maybe you can find your charcoal today with sunshine. So you want to go out from here?
Yeah, and here the...
Geologists Dr. Yugen Jin and Dr. Douglas Irwin are seeking answers to exactly what did cause almost all the life on Earth to become extinct. These rocks were once a part of a vanished sea. And where they end marks one of the boundaries where the world changed. Although very limited in numbers, there are some fossils that still remain. These attracted attention, for they hinted at a total change in the environment.
Chlorios are paper-thin, incredibly abundant. So you find pavements of tens of thousands of these very thin bivalves in the early Triassic. Many times, bivalves similar to this are found in low oxygen settings. So one hypothesis is that the abundance of this particular species indicates that there were low oxygen conditions in the earliest part of the Triassic.
It seems that the planet heated up at the same time as oxygen levels plummeted. Some cataclysmic event had spread across the globe. Clues to what happened came from the oil fields in the west of Siberia. As they drilled deeper, a remarkable discovery was made. The bedrock beneath the oil layer was lava, which reached down almost 2 miles beneath the Earth's surface.
То есть вот он глина красная, да?
Samples of the lava were dated back to exactly the same time as the mass extinction. The spread of lava was even greater than it was first thought. It bulged out to cover an area almost the size of Western Europe. This mountain range was once molten lava. What happened was the greatest volcanic eruption to have ever occurred in the long history of the planet. Researchers from Russia and the United Kingdom began to suspect that the eruption in Siberia was in some way responsible for the global extinction of so many species. The team was led by Dr. Andrew Saunders of Leicester University. It could have been just another peaceful day. The force of the eruption shot lava as high as 3,000 meters, almost 10,000 feet into the air. Curtains of blazing fire stretched across the horizon. Nothing living in the immediate area could have escaped. Dr. Saunders and his team began to explore just what caused this massive eruption. Gradually, their attention was drawn to huge rifts and splits beneath the surface of West Siberia. Some are 100 kilometers or 60 miles wide, and they stretch for almost 1,000 miles. He thinks these are evidence of what caused the massive eruptions.
The uplift, the doming that triggered this rifting, also we estimate was of the order of 1,000, perhaps 1,500 kilometres across. Again, you're looking at an area of a substantial portion of Western Europe. The end of the Cretaceous, we see evidence that the impact came from above. A meteorite impact 65 million years ago, extinguishing a large amount of life. But at the end of the Permian, what we seem to be seeing is that there's impact from beneath, from deep within the Earth. And this seems to have been causing extinction at that time.
The doming that Dr. Saunders talks about is a phenomenon caused by the molten rocks just below the crust. In parts of the planet, this rock experiences greater vertical movements than were previously imagined. In the vicinity of deep ocean trenches, some dramatic movements have been detected. In one, an enormous rock plate has gradually dropped into the regions close to the Earth's core. In other parts of the world, surges of the heated rock have also been detected. The mantle moves closer to the Earth's crust, and this is what scientists think happened in Siberia. When land masses are clustered together, there is a greater possibility of this occurring. "300 million years ago, there was one supercontinent, Pangaea. This vast land mass was surrounded by a deep ocean trench. From this trench, rock plates which had formed the continent dropped slowly toward the Earth's core. This resulted in a surge of heated rock towards the crust. The plume is forced up until it breaks the surface in a massive eruption, a dome of lava rising from the center of the Earth. Thus, the first cause of the mass extinction came from within. Although this was an eruption on an unprecedented scale, it was still localized. This alone could not have wiped out most of life on Earth, but perhaps it was the trigger. All life in the immediate vicinity would have been wiped out, but not across the globe. Some other factor must have been in play. Evidence came from drilling in the deep ocean off Japan in 2002. The Offshore Survey is searching for methane hydrate, which could become an alternative energy source. Methane hydrate is a unique substance formed when water and methane gas bond together. When buried deep beneath the ocean, it is frozen. Deep in the seabed, where the temperature is always low, methane hydrate is very stable. Once the temperature rises, it melts and generates methane gas in volumes over 150 times larger than when the gas was bonded. It is very volatile. In China, at the boundary that marks the mass extinction, evidence was found that large amounts of methane hydrate had started to melt at the same time as the Siberian eruption. And also, there was a dramatic increase in an element called carbon-12. Methane hydrate also contains high levels of carbon-12. The two had to be connected. But perhaps methane hydrate was the culprit which caused the mass extinction. Dr. Paul Wignall of the University of Leeds in Great Britain is certain that methane hydrate was one of the culprits.
Now, of course, ice melts, and in fact, we know from the present-day methane hydrates, which are trapped beneath the sediment, that it would only take a temperature rise of the waters of a few degrees, and then we would start melting that ice. And as the ice melts, it will release its methane, which will bubble out to the ocean surface, and then, hey presto, you've got a nasty greenhouse gas escaping. And we think that this melting of methane hydrates may have happened at the end of the Permian.
There is always cause and effect. This volcanic eruption released huge quantities of carbon dioxide, which then caused the Earth's temperature to climb. As the water temperature rose, methane hydrate began to melt. Methane is 20 times more efficient as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Global temperatures soar, thus releasing even more methane hydrate.
We get a positive feedback. The release of the methane will accelerate the increase of warming, which will release more methane, which will accelerate more and more the global warming, until eventually you have this catastrophic increase. It's a sort of a super greenhouse climate, probably the hottest that the planet has been for the past sort of 600 million years or so.
Once started, the process is hard to stop. At the equator, temperatures rose by several degrees, but at the poles, by a massive 25 Celsius, almost 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And this had a devastating effect around the globe. Entire ecosystems vanished. And if this wasn't bad enough, oxygen levels dropped. This was the critical element of extinction, triggered by the volcanic eruption. And the firm evidence of that can be found in the frozen continent of Antarctica. Amidst the exposed rocks of the Transantarctic mountain range, researchers from the USA and South Africa pool their resources. Dr. Greg Ritalik of the University of Oregon is team leader. He has detected a very rare mineral locked in the rock strata, which immediately followed the mass extinction.
In this part of the sequence that's exposed here, in the very early Triassic, we have some really unusual soils. I've not seen anything like them anywhere else but in this particular early Triassic zone of death. Here's one here. Top of it's there. Root traces go down to this unusual nodule here. It's a very weird mineral called berthierine, and it indicates very low oxygen conditions in the early Triassic.
The mineral berthierine cannot be produced when oxygen is abundant. The discovery of this mineral is added proof that the world had undergone great change. It would have been hot, and the animals that depended upon oxygen would have suffocated. Dr. Bob Bernard of Yale University fed data based on different geological findings into a computer. This is his result. Oxygen levels today are about 20%. Just before the mass extinction, oxygen levels had risen to around 30%. Then it plummeted to 10%. Several factors were at work. When the plants died out, they stopped producing oxygen, and methane gas released from the seabed reacted with oxygen molecules, considerably reducing the atmospheric levels. Some animals managed to survive. One of them was the creature we think is our common ancestor, Cynodont. That it survived at all is probably due to chance and luck. Yet this oxygen-depleted climate allowed a species of reptile to dominate all life on the miracle planet. During the age of the dinosaurs, the mammals remained small and secretive. They did not adapt to the low level of oxygen as perhaps the dinosaurs did. Yet it was the mammals who survived.
We have two mass extinctions. The first one kills off 90% of everything. The second one kills off less. And the reason it kills off less is that there are creatures which are now adapted to deal with this crisis. They are ready for it, and they skate right through it and advance. The oxygen, low levels of oxygen, continue right into the Jurassic. Mammals which survive are having a very hard time. Being a mammal is tough enough. Tasting great is even tougher. But being a mammal with a very bad lung system, and you're not very good. The best you can do is small or hide, and at long periods of time, you're probably not capable of a lot of rapid movement. And instead, you have all these super skaters around you, these motor scooter dinosaurs, which are extracting oxygen more efficiently. They can last longer than you can. They can run faster than you can. They're as intelligent as you are. They do better. Dinosaurs in that world are just better.
Dr. Smith of the South African Museum thinks that our distant ancestors also took an evolutionary step by improving their own breathing system. He was researching Thrinaxodon, one of the cynodont group of mammal-like reptiles which did survive. He thinks that there is evidence that it was beginning to adapt to environments with low oxygen levels. In its ancestral form, the rib cage covered the entire trunk. Now the rib cage covered only its chest. Immediately following the mass extinction, mammals began a different lifestyle. They cared and nurtured their young, fed them with breast milk. Scientists think that the low oxygen levels continued for a further 100 million years. And this played its part in the evolution of true mammals. This fossil is the oldest known of a mammal which had a placenta. It was recently unearthed in China. It was found in strata dating back to 125 million years ago, at the time when dinosaurs were at their peak. This could be the ancestor from which all placental mammals, including humans, have evolved. Dr. Ji Qiang was part of the team that announced the discovery. Some 65 million years ago, the mammals were still obliged to live in secrecy, still trying to stay hidden from the giant reptiles which had ruled the world for the previous 150 million years. But that reign was to come abruptly to a close.
When you go to the end of the Cretaceous and see the rocks deposited then, there's very easy to recognize evidence that an enormous catastrophe was caused by this asteroid impact. We see the result of tidal waves. We find material falling from the sky. We even find minerals that we don't find on Earth, such as iridium.
The dinosaurs were wiped out. The mammals survived. Now we stand and wonder at the bones of these giant lizards, which were the dominant species for so long. The world was now for the taking.